This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The Algiers International Book Fair, SILA, has wound up here in Algiers after receiving 5.6 million visitors, thus reflecting the success of the event and Algeria's thirst to knowledge. The Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator for the United Nations in Sudan has stated that the humanitarian situation in some regions of Sudan remains worrying due to the continued violence and the increasing number of casualties among civilian workers. And since the ceasefire agreement, 241 Palestinians have been killed by the Zionist entity, rising the death toll in the Gaza Strip to 69,176, the majority of whom are children and women. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. Good afternoon. First in our news, as I said in the headlines, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received a message of congratulations from his brother, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of the State of Qatar, on the occasion of Algeria's commemoration of the 71st anniversary of the outbreak of the Glorious Liberation War. In his message, the Emir of Qatar wished progress and prosperity to the Algerian people. Meanwhile, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, received congratulations from the Deputy Emir of the State of Qatar, Abdullah bin Hamad Al Thani, on the occasion of Algeria's commemoration of the 71st anniversary of the outbreak of the Glorious Liberation Revolution. Then the Emir of the Brotherly State of Kuwait, Sheikh Mish'al Al-Hamad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, sent a message of congratulations to the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, on the occasion of Algeria's commemoration of the 71st anniversary of the outbreak of the Blessed Liberation Revolution. Other presidents of friendly countries and regional institutions and also congratulated the President of the Republic on the 71st anniversary of the outbreak of the November Revolution. In this regard, the President of Germany, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the President of Poland, Karol Nawrocki, the President of Hungary, Tamás Zolyok, the President of Slovakia, Peter Pellegrini, and the President of Slovenia, Natasha Pirc-Musar, the President of Bulgaria, Rumen Radev, the President of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, the President of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto, the President of Singapore, Tharman Shanmugaratnam, the President of Malta, Miriam Spiteri Dibono, and the Prime Minister of Thailand, Anutin Charnvikarul, as well as the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abu Al-Ghaith, also sent all their congratulations to the President of the Republic. In its November issue, Al Jaish magazine has stressed that national unity is the essential pillar and guarantee of the preservation of the homeland, as well as the consolidation of the foundations of its security, stability, and relaunch. Mariam Bursha has more details in this report.
In its editorial entitled Our Unity, the Source of Our Strength, Al Jaish recalled that the history of our country is rich in shining examples and memorable events that have brought glory and pride to Algeria and shaped its future. The magazine referred to one of the most significant events, namely the outbreak of the Glorious Liberation Revolution on November 1st, 1954, the 71st anniversary of which is being commemorated this year, described as an eternal epic whose chapters were written by the fighting Algerian people and which will remain forever engraved in human history as one of the greatest liberation revolutions whose echoes resounded throughout the world. It was a revolution led by the Algerian people, whose bravery, ingenuity, faith in the righteousness of their cause, and unwavering determination to make every sacrifice to regain national sovereignty and win their freedom and independence were their main weapons in fighting the battle to the end. It recalled that the Algerian people had to defy the arrogance and tyranny of barbaric occupier who used every form of cruelty, torture, assassinations, kidnappings, and disappearances to keep them under humiliation and oppression, committing war crimes and crimes against humanity that remain unforgivable and that the time cannot erase. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, and Minister of National Defense emphasized that on this 71st anniversary of the outbreak of the glorious Liberation Revolution, as we proudly celebrate the glorious successes of generations who fought tirelessly throughout Algeria, we draw on their sacrifices as a source of unwavering determination and a true breeding ground for a collective consciousness linked to our glorious history, which serves as our guiding compass. The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Sage Ngriha, for his part, said that in order to strengthen the popular character of the army and continue to ensure the constant strengthening of trust between the people and their army, which alone will enable Algeria to acquire the immunity and authority that will protect it from all dangers and threats, and to triumph over the vile and relentless plots and maneuvers of its enemies. Algiers recalled that Algeria will remain proud, strong and secure, as it is full of loyal patriots, including the sons of the army deployed throughout the national territory and along our vast borders, fully carrying out their missions steadfastly and confidently, pursuing the development of the capabilities of our armed forces, strengthened by their genuine popular support and having no other purpose than to preserve the legacy of our glorious martyrs, whose souls continue to float among us, to bear witness to our fidelity to the oath of the fulfillment of our commitment.
And the Minister of Culture and Arts, Malika Bendouda, has presided over the official closing ceremony of the 28th edition of the Algiers International Book Fair, SILA, that wound up here in Algiers. Mariam Barshi develops again.
The ceremony was marked by the awarding of the Mon Premier Livre Prize to the winners, a tribute to cultural and intellectual figures. The closing ceremony began in the Essiet Jabbar conference room at the Exhibition Palace, Safex, where the Mon Premier Livre 2025 prize was awarded to the winners, and several cultural and intellectual figures were honored, and in the presence of the SILA Commissioner, Mohamed Igerb, representatives of national institutions, and the representative of the Embassy of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania in Algeria. In her speech, the minister affirmed that the 28th edition of SILA was distinguished by exceptional participation and rich intellectual and cultural content, adding that it gave a shining image of Algeria of culture, an Algeria that reads, thinks and communicates. The fair's commissioner said the number of visitors recorded at SILA was 5.6, and during this event the minister stressed that this figure not only reflects the success of the event but also reflects the thirst for knowledge and learning of the entire society, as well as the place of reading in the spirit of the Algerian nation. She said the book fair is not a temporary event but a national orientation that Algeria is working on establishing through an ambitious and comprehensive vision aimed at making reading a daily practice in the lives of Algerians, affirming that the book remains at the top of the priorities of the Ministry of Culture and Arts because the stakes are high and the challenge even greater. In the 28th edition of the SILA, held under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, was held under the slogan, "The Book, a Crossroads of Cultures," with the participation of 1,254 publishing houses from 49 countries, with Mauritania as guest of honor.
And shifting now to the Middle East, where the death toll in the Gaza Strip has risen to 69,150 or 76, the majority of whom children and women, since the beginning of the Zionist aggression on October 7, 2023. Local health authorities reported that the total number of injuries has also climbed to 170,690, while many victims remain trapped under the rubble as ambulance and rescue crews are unable to reach them. According to the same sources, during the past 72 hours, the bodies of 7 victims, 1 newly killed and 6 recovered from under the debris, arrived at hospitals across Gaza in addition to 5 injured individuals. Since the ceasefire agreement on October 11, 2025, 241 Palestinians have been killed and 619 injured by Israeli forces, while 528 bodies have been recovered from under the rubble. And a young Palestinian has been killed after he was shot by Israeli troops during a raid on Farah refugee camp in the south of Tubas town in the occupied West Bank. Darosha was rushed in a Palestinian Red Crescent ambulance to Tubas Government Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that Israeli occupying soldiers raided the camp and deployed infantry units at the entrance and firing live ammunition. Israeli occupying forces also carried out raids near Jenin and Ramallah and in the north of occupied East Al-Quds. And the World Health Organization, WHO, and the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, have warned of the serious deterioration of the health and living conditions in the Gaza Strip due to restrictions imposed by the Zionist entity on the entry of humanitarian aid. In a statement relayed Saturday by the media, the WHO indicated that approximately 16,500 patients in Gaza are still waiting to be evacuated to receive medical care abroad, affirming that medical supplies are ready at the border but cannot enter due to the restrictions imposed by the Zionist army. WHO also called for the urgent reopening of the Rafah crossing point and all other crossing points. The World Health Organization stressed that Rafah is a vital entry point for medical evacuations and a crucial entry point for medical supplies destined for Gaza. For its part, OCHA confirmed in a statement reported by the media that hundreds of thousands of families in the Gaza Strip are facing winter without protection or safe shelter. It noted that only 4% of agricultural land in the Gaza Strip remains arable, given the massive destruction caused by the ongoing Zionist offensive. And to Africa now, where the Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator for the United Nations in Sudan, Antoine Drier, has stated that the humanitarian situation in some regions of the country remains worrying due to the continued violence and the increasing number of casualties among civilians and humanitarian workers. Asya Bakar has more.
In an interview granted to the Al Qahira Al Ikhbariya channel, the UN official specified that the humanitarian situation is seriously deteriorating in several states of Sudan due to the resurgence of violence and the killing of civilians. He called for bringing the Sudanese parties together around a comprehensive negotiating table in order to put an end to the repeated violations and to alleviate the suffering of civilians through a lasting political solution, guaranteeing their lives and dignity, emphasizing that the protection of humanitarian workers is an absolute priority. The UN official stated that showing leniency towards the perpetrators of these crimes undermines efforts to save lives and hinders the delivery of aid to besieged populations. He called for firm measures, including the prosecution of those responsible for attacks against humanitarian workers, as impunity encourages further abuses. In the same context, he stated that the UN has observed a widespread of epidemics in several regions, which has resulted in several cases of illnesses among the population. He explained that the deterioration of the health situation is linked to the collapse of medical services and the difficulty of accessing affected areas. Finally, he specified that Sudan has been facing a new wave of cholera for the past 2 months, particularly in the Darfur region, and that UNICEF and the World Health Organization are working jointly with local partners to contain the epidemic and limit its spread.
And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for weekly programs with my colleagues Asya Bakar and Miriam Bershi. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. But pending tomorrow, you can listen to our programs on our Facebook page and X platform account, as well as my Algerian radio application. With this, we come to the end of it. Thank you.